In the beta version of Pokemon Red and Blue, there was a trainer class named as Chief, and even though Chief didn't make it into the final version of the game, you can battle Chief by modifying the internal data or the save game data. The only time the word Chief is said in-game is in Celadon City, by one of the Team Rocket grunts. Chief's Japanese name, Chief of Sylph Corp, shows that Chief was actually going to be the trainer class for the president of the Sylph Corporation, and the player was going to battle him at some point in the game. The president of the Sylph Corporation was responsible for the creation of the Master Ball. And speaking of the Master Ball, due to the way catch rates are calculated in Generation 1, the Master Ball has 1 out of 256 chance of failing to catch a Pokemon. This problem was fixed in later generations. Many of Marowak's Pokédex entries state that there's a large Marowak graveyard that exists somewhere in the Pokemon world, and the younger Marowak would go to those graves to get the bone that they use in battles. The legend of the Marowak graveyard is a reference to the elephant graveyard in modern myth. According to the legends, an elephant's graveyard is a place where older elephants would go when they reach a certain age. They then die there alone, far from the group. This means that when Marowak reach a certain age, they go to this place to die. When Pokemon Gold and Silver was first announced, one of the many new features which was said to be in the game was a skateboard. The skateboard would allow the player to travel to unusual places. The skateboard never made it into the game, but in Generation 6 we did get something similar, the roller skates. Another feature that never made it into the game was Sweet Honey. In the game's code, there is unused text that mentions an item called Sweet Honey, which could be used to attract Pokemon by placing it on a tree and waiting about a day. It was possibly replaced by the move Sweet Scent and the ability to use Headbutt on small trees throughout the Johto region. Sweet Honey eventually made its debut in Generation 4, but it was just called Honey. In the Generation 4 Battle Frontier, the character Caitlyn was introduced, and she is there to oversee the battles that takes place in the Battle Castle. She is responsible for determining how many CP the player should receive depending on the outcome of the battle. She is said to be the most important person in the Battle Castle and acts like a princess, but for some reason she never battles the player, and her butler Turok battles the player in her place. In Pokemon Black and White, the much older Caitlyn returns, but as a member of the Elite Four of Unova. She traveled to the region alone so that she could improve her skills. It is revealed that she possesses some sort of psychic powers, and that in the past she had an explosive temper that would erupt if she lost a battle, causing her psychic power to cause a lot of damage. This explains why she never battles the player in the Battle Frontier, because if she did and lost, then she would have used her psychic power to harm the player. Many of the Pokemon games used the unknown symbols to tell stories of legends and mythologies, but in Generation 3 the Brill symbols were used to tell the stories of the legendary golems. Deep within the Hoenn region is a sealed chamber that contains the secrets of the 3 Regis, and within the chambers are symbols that when translated says this: "In this cave we have lived, we owe all to the Pokemon, but we sealed the Pokemon away, we fear it. Those with courage, those with hope, open a door, an eternal Pokemon waits." And because in the message it says we fear it and not them, it is possible that it represents Regigigas and we represents the people in Snowpoint City. The entire message talks about how the people in Snowpoint City feared the eternal Regigigas, and so they trapped Regigigas and sealed it away by using the 3 keys, the 3 legendary golems. To make it as hard as possible to reawaken Regigigas, the people of Snowpoint City sealed the 3 legendary golems away in different parts of the Hoenn region. The final bit of the message talks about having Relicanth and Wailord in the party, and the reason these 2 is needed is because they represent the general theme of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, the relationship between land and sea. Relicanth is based on the Coelacanth, a creature that is considered to be closely related to the ancestor of all land animals. And Wailord is based on the whale, a creature whose ancestor once lived on land, but has since evolved to live on the sea. Alright, that is all for this video. I'll be back with another video soon, so subscribe and stay tuned.